Welcome, Wolfpack. Welcome, it's the Warzone Wednesday in onesies. Being as comfortable as we can, talking about uncomfortable topics. It's me, Drew, here on the Sigma Prepper channel. Thank you to each and every one of you for being with us. Do appreciate it. You know how we do here on a Wednesday. We're wearing our Wednesdays or our bedroom attire so we can be as comfortable as possible for the Warzone Wednesday, talking about everything to do with how do we survive World War III. How do we survive World War III? This is the question, and this is what this series is all about. This is actually a podcast now on the channel. So if you look on the Single Prepper channel, you see here the tab podcasts, and you'll see there's 3 here so far. We've got the Warzone Wednesday, so there's now 4 in here, including this one. So this is how we're rolling tonight. What are we? This one, Warzone Wednesday, number 4, episode 4. We're doing these weekly where we're talking about all the warfare tactics. We're breaking it down bit by bit and getting straight into it. So great one last week. Thank you to everyone who joined. Really appreciate you joining in the fun. And we were talking about drone warfare last week, don't forget. So if you missed that one, do catch up with that, 'cause it's absolutely ram-packed full of information. So thank you to each and everyone who's joined us. Thank you for hitting the like button if you've done so already. Also, we've got a live poll rocking tonight, as we like to do. For those that are watching this afterwards, you won't see that. So over on the Discord server for Sigma Prepper, it's a great place to be, a great place to make friends, an absolute wealth of knowledge and information. Go and get yourself joined up over there. Our most recent joiner, I believe, was Robert. So welcome, Robert. Member number 131. Come on. Don't miss out. So I've pasted a screenshot of what the poll is tonight, so please vote if you're here with us live. For those afterwards, this is what it was. What would be your biggest concern in the event of an EMP attack? So this is what we're talking about tonight. We're specifically talking about electromagnetic warfare, i.e. EMPs and things like that. So we'll be talking about Faraday cages, we'll be talking about how to protect from that and so on, right? So this is what we're asking. Loss of power, what's going to concern you the most about the idea of an EMP taking everything out, right? So is it loss of power, no technology, no interwebs, right? No movies and everything else in between, no mobile phones, no smartphones? Or is it a breakdown of communication that worries you the most? You've got family who live across town, you're worried about how you're going to keep in contact with them and so on. Is it food and water shortages as cascade effects of an EMP? Or is it the social unrest and security threats that are really the things that are concerning you the most in terms of an EMP attack, if that's how World War III went down, which I propose is more than likely, given it's the first choice of first attack, first move, boom. So we'll see how it goes through the night as we talk about it. So thank you to everyone for joining us. Who was first in the chat tonight? Was it Sandy? It was. Evening all. How's everyone holding up? We've got to be buckling up, everybody. Buckling up. So let's have a look. Hello, Robert McNamara was next in the house. Great to see you. I vote for hoodies. That is my onesie, says Robert. Miss Worm, she's here. UK Urban Prepper, one of our VIP Patreon members. Thank you very much, my man, and fellow Prepper channel creator. So go and check out UK Urban Prepper's channel as well. Great if you're living in the UK. I was about to go live. Lucky I spotted this. Oh no, you should know it's Warzone Wednesday. Great to have you with us, my man. Oh man, I don't even know what to say to that. I do apologise, my man. So Hawkins as well with us. Thank you for being with us, Hawkins. Local Prepper as well. Here we go. Gifts under it. Oh, just in time. So she's made it. Let's have a look. Truly enjoy this jingle. Yeah, 2 weeks in production. The Wolfpack anthem is what it is. It took a long time, but obviously I ran a media company 15 years, so things like music production is one of my things, if you know what I mean. But yeah, thank you, I appreciate it. Magic Hand, Mrs. Sigma Prepper in the house. Love to you, my darling. Thank you, thank you for being here. Daily Survival, moderator of all moderators. Been great catching up with you this week as well. Thank you for being my sounding board. Mr. Boring Potato, great to have you with us. Nothing boring about you, and nothing particularly potatoish. Thank you for joining us. Kaza as well. And, if only I'd thought, my darling, if only I'd thought, I would have been, I would have tried and hook up for a coffee or something with Sigma Prepper Jr. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, of course, earlier in the week. What was it? Monday, I went to, if you look on the lives, I was in London. I went to go and check out the Christmas tree to see if it was really as bad as it was. So I actually streamed live from location in London just a couple of days ago, if you missed that. We're talking about this is Trafalgar Square in London. So go and check that out. And I went proper close up for you so I could see just what it was like, the Christmas tree in London. Yeah, you have to watch the video. But yeah, so thank you to those who are with me for the live. And yeah, it would have been lovely to catch up with you, Kaza. So sorry about that. Space Opera Marg in the house. I haven't seen your name pop up for a while. Great to see you. So thank you everyone for being with us. Emma as well as joining us. Great to see you, Emma. So in terms of after parties, full of hope as well. Great to see you. Amphi in the house. So here's the thing as well. What was I going to say? In terms of after party, right? You'll see we've got a goal tonight because obviously this channel's only been monetized for like 2 days worth of videos of monetization, right? So it's like I have to do all the things that YouTube's telling me to do. The thing it's telling me to do now is to do goals for super chats, right? So if we meet the goal tonight for super chats, then we will be doing a free after party rather than a VIP Patreon one. We'll be doing a public open after party. This is a voice chat room in the Discord server, free to join, links in description below. You'll see it on the left here, the after party. This is where we'll be after the live show tonight, if we hit our goal. If not, it will just be exclusive ting. Also, earlier today, I put up the grid down scenario, e-harvesting power from a mobility scooter. So this was a special connector and other things that I put together as a gift for Sandy, a friend of mine, and she's one of our moderators as well. I'll be sending that out to her tomorrow. By the way, John Haynes, your ultimate hotspot, was sent out today. That'll be with you tomorrow before 1 PM, signed for, tracked and insured. Just so you know. So thank you, John Haynes. Really appreciate that. So go and make sure you don't miss this grid down scenario. This is about harvesting power from a disability mobility scooter, right? And this is partly what we're going to be talking about tonight, because ultimately an EMP, which is what we're talking about tonight, electromagnetic warfare, an EMP is going to take out the grid. It's going to be no power. So anything that you've got for a backup battery, whether that's an e-scooter, an e-bike, your mobility scooter, whatever it might be, you're going to need it, right? So we're going to be covering an awful lot tonight. Chaos is with us as well, just seen. Evening lurker. Drew in London, not popping in for a brew. I know. So close, but yet so far, Kazo, right? The favoritist person in the whole of London. And failed to get in there and, you know, make arrangements, but wasn't sure what was going to be going on. So should we bust into it then? This is how we're going to go. We're going to go through like we do with the Warzone Wednesday, and we'll go through the slides, or we'll talk about, just to refresh our memories, all the different types of warfare, the conventional warfare, fourth dimensional warfare, and fifth dimensional warfare tactics. And then we'll end up with the EMP Electromagnetic Warfare, which is the main topic of discussion for tonight. So we'll gloss through that. We'll then do a little bit of more knowledge of what that is all about, and then we'll go to the global threat analysis, just have a quick look at what's going on in the world, see if there's anything related to the global conflict kicking off, and then we'll have a break. When we come back in part 2, we'll be getting really deep into the EMP, what it is, how it happens, what happens when it happens, and how you can protect your equipment, and what it ultimately means, and how we can prepare against it. So there's an awful lot to get through. So we're going to just dive straight in. And if anybody, in the event somebody does any super chats, it will come up here. So we'll be able to see what people are up to. So, Warzone Wednesday, how to survive World War 3. Let's get into it then. For those, a lot of people will be joining us for the first time. So what I should say first of all, I guess. Love, peace and progress to the pack. Cheers everyone. Really appreciate it. Della, by the way, you should have your mugs. Should have arrived by now, all of them. So thank you very much everyone. Love, peace and progress to the pack. Love to you all. Here's to surviving World War 3. Here's to surviving an EMP. So why do we need to prepare? is more important than ever. Yeah. Obviously 100 years ago, our ancestors knew exactly what they were doing. They knew how to raise goats. They knew how to operate without sophisticated gadgets and things like this, right? They didn't even have proper tractors. They were, you know, horse and cart pulling plows and things for farming, right? Nowadays, people just got no idea, right? It's all technology, all that information and knowledge is being lost. The skills aren't being learned. And so, of course, on top of that, we've got things like higher population densities in our cities and towns now. We've got a JIT system, the just-in-time, so there's no real stock rooms and it's pretty much reliant on everything moving all of the time. This is particularly in a context of grid-down scenario, which causes all of the problems, such as the supply chain falling apart, and the resources are already stretched to the max now, particularly in Western countries and other places. We're critically reliant on tech, again, even more so in the West. I've lived in, you know, other countries like Southeast Asia, a place like Thailand, in a little island where you do become less reliant on tech because you have regular power outages. But generally in the West, just everything's electronic, right? And even people's tin openers. Some people don't even have a manual tin opener, right? It's crazy. And of course, the poverty and crime on the rise, so it just means that when things do kick off, it tends to kick off in a little bit more of a bigger fashion with the way our cultures have become over the last 100 years as well, by comparison. Why learn with me? How do you know that I even know what I'm talking about? Well, I write books on the topic, the Ultimate Prepping Guide and things like that. I've been doing this for 20 plus years. I've been guests on hundreds of shows across around the world since about 2006, and all the rest of the stuff here. So this is what we're going to go through. Then again, we're going to recap like we did last week quickly for those that are joining us and haven't seen the others. And it's good to remember these things, and the more we see this, the more it's going to embed in our memories so that we understand what we're talking about when we discuss topics to do with global conflict and what the risks are, and how we're going to adapt and survive and navigate those risks through our preparedness and our survival skills that we're going to need to get prepared and learn ahead of time so we're ready to rock and roll. We've got a rough idea how we're going to deal with each of these things. So let's get through them. So conventional warfare tactics, again, typical stuff, which is, involving direct, like kinetic means, like tanks and ships and stuff like this, right? And they're traditional battlefield strategies, and they have to adhere to established rules of engagement, stuff like human rights and United Nations things, right? Law. International law, right? So this form of warfare focuses on physical domination of territory and the destruction or surrender of opposing forces. This is very much an overt type of warfare. Everyone knows it's going on. So it's like tanks rolling in and Apache helicopters firing missiles, right? That kind of stuff that you imagine when you imagine warfare, right? So the sort of types of things to expect from conventional warfare, some of the key attributes, if you like, are organised state actors. So this will be like country to country, proper militarised and uniformed military personnel, flying the flags of their nations and so on, between nations and formal coalitions. Standard weaponry, firearms, tanks, artillery, ships, aircraft and missiles. Rules of engagement governed by international agreements like Geneva Conventions and so on. So they're generally within a sandbox of that type of conventional warfare. And these are some of the breakdowns of the warfare tactics. Don't forget, we will be going into each one of these week by week. We pick one off the list each week. Sometimes it's because of what's relevant in the news and what's trending out there at the moment. Sometimes it's just in order of importance to what's most likely, right? So these are the warfare tactics under the conventional methodologies. So let's get into the fourth dimensional then. Starting to get a bit more gnarly. Yeah, starting to get a little bit more sneaky. So fourth dimensional warfare refers to unconventional and asymmetric tactics designed to disrupt, outmaneuver, or weaken traditional military forces. So often involves smaller or less equipped forces using innovative strategies, guerrilla tactics, things like this that we sort of started to see fighting in the Middle East, where you couldn't really detect friend from foe. It was very difficult. People hiding in hospitals and just things that are generally not allowed. You know what I mean? Just gnarly stuff. Just wearing normal robe attire with an AK hidden underneath kind of thing, which again is very difficult for uniformed forces going in. Are very obvious who they are. So some of the fourth dimensional warfare tactics will include things like that, including, within physical world, but diverges from traditional warfare by relying on predictability, adaptability, and unorthodox strategies, because you've got smaller splinter cell groups that are funded by other nations in some cases. Check out UK heading towards our goal for our after party. Just my favourite number. Going deep with truth. Thank you so much, UK brother. Really appreciate you helping to keep the lights on the show alive. Thank you to each and every one of you out there following along. So these are some of the things to expect from a fourth dimensional warfare tactics. This is sort of the key attributes to this is unconventional tactics, which include relying on irregular methods like sabotage, ambushes, hit and run attacks. Yeah, I think things like the gas pipeline in Russia, Nord Stream, and you know, it was like no one knew who done it, and it was done covertly. It was done at night, you know, underwater with special forces. Who knows, right? But causing catastrophic damage economically and everything else from the energy supply. So asymmetric in power, it can be like a small group of adversaries, you know, like mercenaries and stuff, up against literally an entire country's military in terms of its asymmetry, right? And it focuses on weaknesses. So we'll look at a country and say, what is its weakness? In this case, with the example of the pipeline, it's like, you know, that's a weakness of the interlink between Germany and Russia, and it was a good way to then, on top of sanctioning and things like that with the energy exports of oil and gas, it was like a very strategic maneuver, considered very much a fourth dimensional warfare tactic. So this is the full list of how they look. Pretty much what would you call it, an exhaustive list of things that would come under the fourth dimensional. You'll notice that EMP and electromagnetic warfare is not part of the fourth dimensional warfare tactics, right? It does include things like terrorism, resource warfare, you know, sabotaging grains and crop yields and things like this, right? That kind of thing. Cutting off pipelines, cutting off water supplies, yeah, things like that, right? Gnarly stuff. So fifth dimensional warfare tactics is where we're getting into it. So fifth dimensional is this is going beyond the physical battlefield. We're talking like cyber, we're talking like AI, we're talking robotics, automations, things like dead man switches, right? Just gnarly stuff. But these are often, as it says, often without the need for direct physical confrontation, because again, this is the big threat. If you're being one-to-one confronted by a military, then you have to admit you're at war, and therefore everything's off the table or on the table, right? So this is focusing on undermining opponents through psychological, economic, and technological means. So this is some real gnarly stuff that, and again, even stuff that we couldn't even think of, comes under the fifth dimensional warfare tactics, right? Some of the key attributes of these are things like indirect engagement, so people don't even know that they're being engaged. They can be playing the long game, where there could be something that they're doing to your economy, to your culture, to your information supply chain, and things like this into the country, and you wouldn't even know about it until it's too late, right? So it's very, very covert. Avoids physical contact, instead target systems and perceptions. Global reach, operates across borders without deploying troops. Again, very powerful stuff, because this is how small nations can take down big nations without the big nations even know they've been taken down, right? And this includes things like psychological warfare type things, yeah, designed to influence the behavior and sort of perception management and things like this, right? And targeting the economy and disruption in the cyberspace are all linked into the fifth dimensional warfare tactics. This is the exhaustive list. You'll see drone warfare was on this list as well from last week, and down the bottom there, electromagnetic warfare is what we're chatting about today, the 18th of December 2024. Fifth dimensional warfare tactics, electromagnetic warfare. This is what we've got going on. It's likely to be first strike type of a maneuver, so it's something that is likely to happen if World War III kicks off. This is something that's highly likely. Just so you know. Right. Oh, check out Louis73. Joining the wolf pack. Thank you very much for joining us. Please make sure you're voting live in the chat. I'll try and keep my eye on the comments as we go through and see what people are chatting about. So let's do that now with a brief summary of, you know, what we're chatting about, because essentially what we're really talking about is this kind of business, right? This is ultimately what the EMP kind of would end up looking like over an entire continent. This would be more of a local distributed one that actually is a kinetic as well would look like, in terms of just the electromagnetic energy flying about in the sky is just generally not a good look. But this is what we're talking about for our Warzone Wednesday. The electromagnetic warfare is what we're going to be completely focusing on, with the EMPs and how we can protect against it, what it means for us, what the cascade effect of the damage could be, and things like that. So this is what we're talking about tonight. Let's catch up with the chat. Emma here. I remember when I was little, our village had no water. We had to get every container we had. I was a kid, so couldn't carry much, and queue at a tanker to get water. Oh man, yeah. I mean, anytime you've been in something like that, you do appreciate water. I've said many times when we were living in a small little desert island, not a desert island, but it might as well have been, a tropical island in the middle of Thailand, right? It was only a very small island, and we were cut off from all supplies, and our private well was contaminated, so we had to survive off our stored water, the bottled water that we had. So we were just lucky we had about 7 or 8 on rotation. The water trucks never came round, and like Emma says there, when you go through something like that, you really appreciate water. And I've mentioned before as well, living in Cyprus, there was 4 days a week there was no water. The government would turn the water off because of the drought. There was like no rain for like 3 years or something while we were living there. So they just rationed the water, and you only had water like 2 or 3 days a week, and then they turn it off, and for 4 days you just have to sorry about your luck. It's bad news, man. Flat cap gaming, I expect those days will soon come back again, Emma. Yeah, and water's so important, don't forget. 3 days without water and it's lights out, curtains, logged out the admin. Yeah. My misspelling reminds me of a joke before. I got lurk and learn. There was a crash by a snooker accessory supplier on the motorway. There was queues for my own. Very good. Cheers to you, my darling Emma. Thank you for your jokes in the chat. Don't forget, if you've got some really cool memes and stuff, right, or some really good inspirational quotes, the Discord community server is the best place to do that. You can do it over here. You see your memes, right? You can go and add your memes in there. This is a great one. Look, New Jersey Guide to Aircraft Identification. This is great for last week with the drone warfare, right? With everything that's going on in New Jersey with the drones. So New Jersey Guide to Aircraft Identification. Look, jumbo jet drone, jet fighter drone, Concorde drone. Oh dear, right. So go and have some fun in there. Go and add to it, right? Don't be shy. It's free to join as well, so it's just criminal not to. Also, okay, thank you, Daily Survival. Sorry, I got my head of security is just sent me a message on Discord. Thank you for that, my darling. Apparently the goal ended, so that must be Bulb, sorry, that must be based on 2 hours from the start. Hey, Cynthia Coronata. Oh, thank you, my darling. I really appreciate that. Are you liking Sigma's Christmas hat, my darling? Yeah, and the garland. Got garland rocking as well. Sporting the festive spirit. Sailor's dark beer in the olden days. Cheap weak beer in cans would be okay. Mr. Williams said, yes, ale and wine because the water's really clean enough to drink. Oh. You forgot the flying saucer equals drone. Thank you, Caroline Rose. Great to see you, my lovely. I hope things are well with you over on the Southern Hemisphere. So, great to see you. Thank you for joining us all. So, what we're going to be doing then is we're going to be checking out the SHTF, what's going on in the world, just very, very briefly so we can say we've done it. And then when we come back after that, we'll be doing a part 2 and we'll be getting right into it. Because this is going to be pretty packed out with stuff, right? There's quite a lot to get through. It's a bigger topic than I thought. And of course, I'm writing the last chapter in my book, The Ultimate Guide to Prepping, which is like 350 pages big, right? And it's because like the Surviving World War 3 is one of the chapters. It's the last one I'm writing. And so this is a little bit of a cheat for me, right? In terms of it's useful for you, it's great value for you. But by doing these Warzone Wednesdays, I'm able to draw on all of my notes that I put together for the Surviving World War 3 chapter of my book, right? And so it's quite nice for me to be able to do these shows and to use some of my notes from my the book I'm writing to be able to share that with you as we go through. And it helps me to get it in my mind. And I'm hoping as well that we get some great ideas from you live in the chat, which is exactly why I do these things live. Most people couldn't push all these buttons all at the right times and everything else that you got to do this live, but this is how I like to do it, because we can engage with the wolf pack there in the chat, who may have some great ideas or some input or some expertise in certain areas, and we can fire off each other, which tends to work really well. And you know, this is what we like to do. So without further ado, let's jump into it then and get the global threat analysis sorted, and then make sure there's nothing out there about to hit the fan while we're here doing our doing our thing. There has been a few things going on, but we're not going to be spending too long. It's going to be super quick, and then we can come back in to talk more about Surviving World War 3 and all the risks associated with it. So please hit the like button if you haven't done already. Global threat analysis is coming up. Buckle up. Buckle up. Right, I hope you've got your onesies on and you're buckled up nice and comfortably, so we can jump through and see what been Guam in the world. I did have, I was tempted to pull some videos out that I had prepared for you, but I think it's gonna make it a pretty long show, and we need it to be an orderly kind of a level of stuff. So let's get into it quickly then. We'll just do mainstream media and see what's going on, because this is all significant. Syria not a threat to world, rebel leader. So don't forget, we've got a Syria situation. I was talking about that before, where it's just interesting how we've got the situation in Syria going on, we've got a situation in South Korea going on, we've got a situation in Romania and Georgia as well, which are all places that are important to Russia and the BRICS nations, or that collective as a whole, with particularly Russia and China. So I just don't think it's a coincidence we've got that going on. And it's also interesting that there seems to be a lot of governmental collapse type things happening in terms of all the disruptions, the instability. You'll notice that, like I say, with the South Korean Prime Minister being ousted after sort of initiating the martial law the way he did. And so on top of that, you've got the situation with France's ex-president Sarkozy loses corruption case appeal. You've got, it looks like things are falling apart for Macron over in France. There was also in Germany, I believe, their government is sort of in a bit of turmoil at the moment. It looks like the British government is going through a lot of turmoil at the moment, a lot of infighting, a lot of people leaving the party, a lot of people with petitions that they're not happy. It just seems like it really does seem like it's a disproportionate number of governments around the world, particularly allied countries, who seem to be having a lot of turmoil and instability, which is just an unusual number. Let me know live in the chat if you are feeling the same thing and you're noticing the same thing. Buckle up. Buckle up, Buttercup. Recently found your channel, looking forward to the latest news. Thank you, John Smith. Well, wasn't that recently, John? Yeah? Or CJ? Good to see you, CJ. Full of hope. Visited Syria this afternoon. Well, yeah, it's all going on. It's all going on. So, I'm just saying, I don't think that lot is a coincidence, right? Because in terms of the connection to the World War III Warzone Wednesdays we're talking about, right? These are important things. You know, you've got things like here in the mainstream. This is why you look on the mainstream, because you know you're going to get that information warfare rocking straight in your face, right? And it makes it easy to decipher what they're trying to tell you without telling you, right? United Front, China's magic weapon caught in a spy controversy, right? Controversy, depending on where you're from. Oh, of course, the general's assassination as well in Moscow. That's like properly pushing it out there, right? It's just not a good look. Yeah. Look, embattled Liberian speaker, question bar please. I mean, it's all going on, yeah? It's all going on. And like I say, it really does feel pretty disproportionate levels of disruption in quite a lot of governments, which, you know. So in terms of earthquakes, let's just blast through this then. It's looking all right. I've just been checking the west coast because, of course, we had that flurry over there and a big one off the coast. But it looks like it's settled down there. A few aftershocks maybe. But 34 earthquakes over the last 24 hours of an endpoint 2.5 and above is pretty normal. Space weather's looking calm. Doesn't look like we got much to worry about there. We do have some growing sunspot active regions there, but only got one here that's got even the slightest bit of magnetic mixing. It's not even beta gamma delta, it's just beta gamma. So nothing really to worry about here. In addition to the geomagnetic storm, so we do have this incoming off the eastern limb, which is on the left hand side. Viewed from the bottom, the sun is. And that's what we got for you in terms of what's going on in the world. Let's get our good news stories up as well. We'll do a good news story like we like to do, particularly because it's the Warzone Wednesday, and I know even though we've got our onesies on, mine's a hooded. I don't think it's the one with the bear ears on it, but it's the hooded onesie, so we can be as comfortable as possible talking about uncomfortable topics such as how we survived World War III. So, now we're all animal lovers here on the Sigma Prepper channel. So over here on the Discord server, links in the description below. It's completely free to join. We can share our loved ones, our pets, your pussycats and your doggy dogs, right? So do share your loved ones, says JD. Yeah, looking like an absolute geezer in his tactical stuff. We got Sapper Prepper UK as well, sharing his loved ones. Look, what an absolute gorgemeisters. So please do equally share your pets over there. But the news story we're going to have as our good news story is an animal-based one, as we like to do. A Christmas miracle. Doberman finds his forever home after 862 days in shelter. What's that? More than 2 years. This was from the 16th of December, so recent this is. Today's good news story comes from Kenilworth, England. Jake, a 9-year-old Doberman who spent over 2 years at Dogs Trust in Kenilworth, finally has a family to call his own, just in time for Christmas. Oh, look at that. After spending the last 2 holidays at a shelter, this year Jake will celebrate with John and Amanda, the couple who gave him the gift of a forever home. Jake's journey hasn't been easy. When he first arrived at the shelter, he was terrified of dogs, humans, and, as staff described, quote, just about everything. His combination of medical needs and patience required for his training meant that Jake often overlooked by potential adopters. It's always sad, isn't it? The Dogs Trust team worked hard to help Jake overcome his fears, but it seemed he might never find a home. Until John and Amanda stopped by his kennel. Hold my beer, they said. Drawn to the shy Doberman, the couple spent weeks getting to know Jake and participating in training sessions with the shelter staff. Their dedication paid off and Jake's adoption became a fish. Should we check it out? This is him, look. Jake. Oh, bless his cotton socks, man. Imagine that, 9 years old, you know, you're going to be logging out of the admin soon. And it's not how you want to go, is it? Especially if you're scared of dogs and you're crammed into some kennel somewhere, right? Our Hugo Bear was a rescue. Yeah. Our dog before that was a rescue, Staffordshire Bull Terrier. And they do love you far more because they appreciate it far more, right? But yeah, what a lovely story. So I'm glad they shared that. When we collected him, there wasn't a dry eye in the house except for Jake, who happily jumped into our car. What a great turnaround. He settled in beautifully, growing in confidence every day, and has already made new friends, including the postie and barman with dog treats. Isn't that lovely? So that's our good news story for today. I haven't done the memes because we're flying through, obviously, for the Wednesday. Della Sandor in the house. I received my Signal Prepper merch. High quality and delivered as promised. Coffee tastes better out of a Signal Buff. Thank you so very much. Cheers to you, my beautiful Della. Love, peace and progress to the pack. Cheers. With the officials, Signal Prepper Mega Mug. This is the 20-ounce version. But thank you so very much. Really appreciate it, Della. Love to you. Thank you so very much. Tap the like button. Good shout, Daily Survival. Good shout. Thank you for your support and being the moderator of all moderators. Let's just see what people are up to in the live in the chat. Full of hope. My Staffy and me were totally in love. A rescue. R.I.P. Stimmer, so yeah, bless. Vanuatu, that was it, World Medic. Vanuatu 7.4. I'll tell you what. Because I love yous. What I'll do is I'll see if I can very quickly pop open the things that I was considering doing. Oh yes, actually. We will have a... When it's finished crashing. It's not crashing. I like to have the odd... you know, the whole a smart man learns from his mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others, right? We'll have, I've got something for that. And there's a few things I want to show you, so I might as well get them for you, and we'll do it as part of the SHTF, the global threat analysis, right? I'm just trying to find the right... There's a video here. Oh, and also the final experiment, don't forget. So the flat earth is now officially debunked. Yeah? A bunch of people went down to Antarctica. They paid 35 grand each to go down to Antarctica to observe the sun for themselves. Flat earthers, globers, right? Yeah, and basically what they didn't know they were going to see was the sun not setting all the way around, right? But I'm going to do a whole video about it. I'll do that tomorrow. I'm sure I had a video of... I thought I had a video of the earthquake, but maybe I didn't. Sorry. But in the meantime, what we do have is a couple of things that we'll share. Right, sorry about that. I wasn't sure if I'd do these or not. Let's just sort the audio out. This one. So here we go. What's this one? Zelensky visiting the US after Trump takes office.
No. No.
Oh, amazing. We love it. This is the bit where we remind ourselves why humans are so lovable. Are such lovable creatures, right? Because they're so clever. Because they spend their time making stuff like that. Oh, man. What's this one? Oh, this is funny. Well, it's not funny, but this is one of those, you know, wise man learns from the mistakes of others. Don't do this. For those in the back, let's play it again. Just don't. Just my advice. Oh, why? Why, man? It's just not worth the risk. Let me know if you felt it live in the chat and in the comments below if you're watching it after. Oh, man. Take the shame. The walk of shame. The walk of shame, I tell thee. Let me know if you feel embarrassed for him. I've got third-party proxy cringe. Yeah, you heard me. Third-party proxy cringe. That's how cringe it was. So don't do that. Oh, be humble. Be humble in your winnings. This is something that I just think is kind of wild. This is apparently what IS did to Syria. Check it out. I mean, look at the size of this thing. This is crazy. So it's properly kicking off even with that as well, right? Which is all part of the... It's all part of that overall plan, right? So these are things that are happening all the time in the background, right? Don't underestimate how close we are, right? The things that are going on around the world just because you don't see them on the TV. So this is pretty cool. Check this out. It's while we're here, because we like talking about survival gear and prepping as well. Just thought I'd share this one with you. This is pretty cool. Look, as a bug out trailer. Yeah. As one of your bugging out options. If you can't afford an RV or you ain't got the space for one, check this one out. It's pretty good living space. Yeah. Got blinds and stuff. Collapsible table. That converts into a bed. Kind of double bed. I reckon you'll fit two on there if you're lucky. I'm about 6 foot, so that looks like you could probably get in there. But look at the way it collapses down. It's pretty cool. Let us know if you're feeling it. Yeah? Look at that. And you wouldn't even need a massive car either, and massive vehicle to pull it along. If you see, he moves it along manually, just pulling it along, so you wouldn't even need to have some big 4x4, but get some chunky off-road terrain tyres on that. Yeah, and some pimping alloys. Right. And some go faster stripes, and we're in Bidney. Yeah? Let me know what you think. I think it's cool. I like that kind of thing. There's other versions of that, but I came across that one. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool. I appreciated it. And I wondered if my fellow Wolfpack members would also appreciate it. I'd love to go to Vanuatu, Caroline. I really would. South America entirely as well. Generally, I would like to go and visit. I did do one about the alien invasion, but I could do that. Outside the box thinking. That's kind of what I'm known for. Delisandra and Haas. I don't know what we're laughing at. I don't know what I missed. I do take crypto donations as well. Full of hope. Hello, my lovely. It's great to see you. Great to see you over on the Discord server as well. Well, someone was educated beyond their intelligence, weren't they? I totally... Oh, Darwin Bryce. Yes, of course. Sorry, this is the matey boy showing off. Don't be doing the showboating, man. It's just not worth it if it goes wrong. What's that thing about... I can't remember. I'll mash it up. As a sailor, my bug out plan would potentially lose all bar celestial navigation backed up by paper and pencil. I actually, yeah, love that trailer. Emma's liking it. Kaz's liking it. But I hope's liking it. And I'm liking it. So we're all liking it. Tracy J in the house. Tracy J in the house. We're talking about electromagnetic warfare, girlfriend. That's what we're chatting about. Yeah. Don't worry, we'll be getting back into it straight after this. We've got part 2 coming up. We're going to be diving straight into the electromagnetic warfare. Figuring out how things are going to go down, how we protect ourselves from it, and things like that. But for the time being, we're in the global threat analysis, which we're just wrapping up anyway because we're pretty much tidied up. Looks like we're all right for the time being. Lots of stuff going on. Keep your eye out. What I was talking about, right? Keep your eye out on the mainstream and alternative news in terms of reports of governments becoming unstable, parties collapsing. Just just keep your wits about and you'll see what I'm talking about, right? And that usually, I've got a theory on what that's about. I maybe do that as a members only video or Patreon video. So, let's get out of here then. Don't go anywhere, and we'll be getting into the second part of the Warzone Wednesday, talking about EMPs, how we protect from it, Faraday cages, and everything else to do with it. So don't go anywhere. It's all getting wobbly, says Full of Hope. Certainly is. Oops, we don't need those anymore, do we? No, I'm only supposed to wear those for the global threat analysis. So thank you, everyone. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed. We've just given a quick summary. You can unbuckle now. You can unbuckle your seatbelts. Unzip your onesies a little bit. Chill out, relax. Right. Oh man. Let's have a look. Basically no solutions without large costs. Well, we're going to look at that. That's exactly why we're here. Obviously, just so you know, I'm an electronic engineer and robotic engineer and software engineer and so on. So the best person to be busting this open in terms of EMPs and how to protect against it is obviously going to be someone who's fully trained in it, right? So we got lots to get through. I've got loads of stuff sitting here that I want to show you as well. That I want to go through. Also part of the, which I gave a sneak peek of earlier on in the video I did earlier today with the Sigma Prepper Ultimate e-harvesting kit, is going to come into this as well, because of course with the power down situation we need to understand how we're going to connect stuff up, how we're going to power things, how you protect devices from being damaged, is it even worth protecting devices, and what we can use that's not expensive and can work well, and some of the pitfalls we also need to talk about. So that's what we got coming up. We'll be getting right into electromagnetic pulse stuff for our Warzone Wednesday episode 4. Let me just make sure everything's set up okay. And don't forget, if you'd like to join the Discord server, the link's in the description below. It's a great way to make friends and learn from all of the intel and knowledge base there for prepping and survival. So what is your necklace? This is the Sigma Prepper pendant. My Sigma Prepper pendant. Just so you know. Let me know if you like it. I'm prototyping actually one. It's up there somewhere in my lab area. But I'm prototyping one that is actually, this is hollowed out, you see, specifically is the way I've done it, so that I can have electronics in the back and the eyes light up with optical fiber. But the problem is that because these are stainless steel, they're extremely hard. It takes me 3 drill bits to get through the eyes with a 1mm drill bit for the optical fiber for the eyes, which light up when you get notifications for alerts and stuff. Yes, but it connects to my one connects to the internet, the one that's the prototype. But I do watchmaking stuff. It's like got a lot of electronics crammed into a small space, and it's great for my own one, and it works beautifully, and it's really pimp, right? But as I said, I was talking to Daily Survival about this several months ago, and I said it's just not viable for me to produce them on a mass scale. They take me days and days of watchmaking tools and things to put them together, so it's just not viable until I've got the budget to be able to bring these things to market in the way they need to be. So I've got other things I'm working on anyway at the moment. I need to finish one of the sensor nodes for my tactical intelligence assistant custom security system for bugging out and homesteading survival, right, and security. So I've got plenty of other projects going anyway at the moment. So do you sell any watches? No, not yet. Yeah, don't worry, John Smith is CJ. He's been problematic sometimes, so I'll just ignore it. It's not worth getting into, believe me. I've learned that mistake. So,
critical alert.
Please do hit the like button.
This is not a test.
Because this is not a test. We are doing it. Electromagnetic warfare is how we're rocking today. This is what we're talking about when we come back. We have got so much to get through, so I can give you the rundown and everything you need to know, and to disperse and get rid of any myths in terms of Faraday cages, what you should and shouldn't do and why, and all the little ins and outs and all the rest of the things. So that's what we've got coming up in part 2. We've gone through the slides to re-familiarise you, of course, with what's going on with the types of warfare tactics. This was the final part, the 5th dimensional warfare tactics called here electromagnetic warfare. Last week it was drone warfare because it was relevant in the news. Electromagnetic warfare is now relevant because they're talking about that quite a lot in the news, about being a first strike and about how countries just aren't prepared for it, their grids aren't hardened for it. We are way open for it, you know, we're just vulnerable as hell. So lots to get through. Please don't go anywhere because I'm not, but we are going for a short break so I can refill my tea and reload, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. In the meantime, stay here, hit the like button. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Welcome back to part 2 of the Warzone Wednesday with your host Drew. Here on the Secret Prepper channel, you know how we do. Thank you to everyone here live with us. We like to do this live so we can just get it done. Feedback from you, fine people in the chat. Drinks on me, says Day Survival. I hope everyone's got themselves a reload and they've got themselves in their onesies if they weren't before for our Warzone onesie. I noticed YouTube's playing some tricks on us tonight. Looks like they're chopping lots of things off. It's amazing. So thank you for that, YouTube. Really appreciate it. We love you. Thank you to our super chatters as well. Really appreciate you tonight. So let's just check as well what we've got going on. So thank you, everyone. Right, let's kick off the slippers. Kick off the slippers and get into it for today's SHTF Survival Scenarios, prepping for SHTF, Warzone Wednesday, how to survive World War 3. And of course today we are talking about electromagnetic EMP weapons, which is part of the 5th dimensional warfare tactics list. Last week we did drone warfare. This week it's electromagnetic warfare, where we're going to get into it and let you know everything you need to know about electromagnetic warfare, what it is, how it happens, what it does, and ultimately how we can protect from it. And don't forget, I'm an electronic engineer for 30 odd years or whatever, so trust me when I tell you what I'm talking about on this topic. So it will be interesting and I'll be able to put a lot of thingy bobs to rest, as a lot of people who come out with an awful lot of stuff, they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to Faraday cages. So we're going to cover all of that today. So we've got lots going on for our Warzone Wednesday. Don't forget, we do this every week on a Wednesday. This is episode 4. It's turned into a podcast. So if you'd like to join in with that, you can do. Here, you'll see on the channel, we got podcasts and you can see the Warzone Wednesday's got all 40 episodes in there. If you missed last week's for the warfare tactics, looking at drones, then of course you can catch up on that. Grid down scenario is going to be a great one for you to follow as well. That's an absolute must watch. I've chopped that ultimate live I did into 6 parts that you can watch nice and conveniently, and that'll give you a day-by-day blow of what happens when the grid goes down and what you should do about it, right? You should watch that, and it's literally ram-packed, right? And that is ultimately what we can expect as a result of a grid down scenario. Electromagnetic warfare would be complete and utter destruction of the grid. So let's talk about how that happens first of all, right? As we go through, and we'll look at, like I said before, I'm using my notes and a lot of what I've written for the chapter Surviving World War 3 in my book, upcoming for 2025, The Ultimate Prepping Guide by Secret Prepper. Yours truly, Drew Law. So that's what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to be pulling notes from that as we go through, so we can sort of determine what is what, so we know what we're talking about, right? So first and foremost, electromagnetic pulse weapons, right, when it comes to a country level thing. Yeah, there's the usual Wikipedia style component to it. EMP, also referred as a transient electromagnetic disturbance. So this is not specific to what they use as a nuclear created one. There's different pulse waveforms. We'll look at that as well as frequencies. But essentially, there's two primary types of EMP that we need to worry about, right? Now, one is a man-made kind, one is not. So, of course, you've got things like CMEs from solar flares and stuff, coronal mass ejections, which themselves have a highly magnetized component to it, which interacts with our own magnetosphere here on Earth. And that perturbation that happens on our magnetosphere is what causes the disruption and the energy buildup that gets into our grid and takes it down. And it basically overloads the transformers, which are the things that transform the power that runs along the power lines that run at 60,000 volts, and then they go through a transformer which converts it down to what we use in our distributed hubs around the towns, right? And these things are massive and expensive, and they take a long time to make, so they're not things you buy off the shelf, right? These things are like 50-foot high metal, massive, heavy, difficult, right? So that's obviously the coronal mass ejection side of it. And I've talked about frequencies before, but it's important because the frequency is a much lower frequency wave, if you like, that's coming from a CME from a sun, an EMP from that. And so a Carrington level event, right? The Carrington event, which was in 1859, which was like a massive X28 class solar flare, which was enough to take down the grid, even though it was very limited back then. Our infrastructure and what we had, and it's things like there was a near miss as well in 2012. There was a real massive X-class solar flare, CME that came off the sun, but luckily it wasn't Earth facing. If it had been, they reckon that would have been lights out, logged out the admin, all the satellites taken out, right? You name it, absolute nightmare, right? Now, man-made EMPs are very different, right? They are designed to be destructive, right? Now they're different from standard. Well, there's nothing standard about a nuclear explosion, but essentially, one of the byproducts of a nuclear weapon exploding is an element of electromagnetic pulse, whether you like it or not, right? Now there's things that you can do to reduce that somewhat without reducing the yield, the overall yield of the explosive, but typically, you would be talking about things like HEMP, which is the high altitude electromagnetic pulse. And these things are like lich, properly high up ionosphere type looking stuff. So these are directed energy weapons, so they're specific. So if we look at a nuclear magnetic pulse, electromagnetic pulse here, you'll see, or any EMP is a burst of electromagnetic radiation created by a nuclear explosion. The resulting rapidly varying electric and magnetic fields may couple with electrical and electronic systems to produce damaging current and voltage surges, right? Now, when you look, this is the HEMP device here, right? So tens to hundreds of miles above Earth's surface is known as a high altitude electromagnetic pulse, HEMP device. Effects of HEMP device depend on factors including the altitude and detonation, energy yield, gamma ray output, interactions with the Earth's magnetic field, and electromagnetic shielding of targets, right? So if you look at the energy wave that's dispersed though above me, look, you can see that there's a component element that it gets drawn towards the equatorial regions of Earth. So you can see here, this is a continent level. This is like a continent level EMP. This is the whole of the United States here, look. This is the whole of North America, right? And it's basically lights out. So this is no messing about stuff, right? This isn't like, this isn't a local thing. right? And they've done lots of these. They've done lots of these before, like high altitude nuclear explosion here. Look, there was the hard track teak, 1958. There was one as well. So it has several components in the first few tenths of nanoseconds. Yeah, so it happens very quickly. And the thing about an EMP to know is the fact that it's a very short burst of energy, but it's a very high yield of energy in a very short amount of time, right? So in the same way as like G-forces can become destructive if the gravitational force goes over a certain amount, and that's usually derived by the deceleration over time axis, which will give you the G, right? And so given Earth's gravity at 1 G, right? So in that kind of a way, if you reduce the speed right down so that deceleration happens in a really small amount of time, the G goes up. The destructive level goes up. It's the same with EMP, because that energy comes in such a short pulse, but there's a lot of energy all at the same time. It all happens literally in a flash, right? Nanoseconds, which is millionths of a second, right? But check out the sort of energy we're talking about, right? So first of all, the radius for an effective satellite kill for the constant telephone radiation produced by such a nuclear weapon in space was determined to be roughly 80 kilometers. Further testing to this end was carried out and embodied. So there was another thing about taking out the satellites, which wasn't actually part of their plan when they first tested their EMP or the HEMP devices and things like this. They sent one right into space, and it actually wiped out 3 satellites. Destroyed completely 3 satellites, right? So they launched these things, and this is the Starfish Prime, right, which was a high altitude nuclear test conducted by the United States, right? And so this was done. The explosion took place at an altitude of 250 miles. This is what I'm talking about, hundreds of miles above the surface, yeah. Above a point 19 miles southwest of Johnson Atoll, had a yield of 1.4 megatons. Explosion was about 10 degrees above the horizon as seen from Hawaii at 11 p.m. Hawaii time. Operation Fishbowl was one where they literally sent it into space, and it's just bad news, right? It's not a good look. So, essentially, so let's talk about how they work then, right? So we understand what they are, we understand what they do. They detonate them at very high altitude, which means they have an effect over a vast area, continental size area of effect, right? Now, let's deal with the drawbacks first as to why militaries like EMPs, but they kind of don't at the same time. And that goes back to what I just showed you there. That's why I want to bring up the Starfish Prime. Because the Starfish Prime project, when they did that, was when, like I say, they destroyed like several satellites inadvertently. I don't know if it mentions it here in the Wikipedia thing. It's just off the top of my head. I don't know if it mentions it. But of course, the problem then you've got is that you need to worry about your taking out your own satellites, right? So you need to make sure that you're not doing an own goal, right? Because if you're going to EMP, if you're Russia and you're going to EMP America, right, then you have to consider the possibility that when that goes woomph at high altitude, that you're going to take out your own Russian satellites as they're going over at the same time. Do you know what I mean? And that is a thing. So you've got to worry about scoring an own goal, as they say, right? Friendly on friendly. So you need to consider, they have to consider these things quite carefully. Now, there is an alternative method, which is one that's slightly more, that's a little bit more localized, let's say, right? So where it's more focused on a lower altitude airburst type thing, which again is designed to give you a significant EMP, electromagnetic pulse element of it. Now, which brings us nicely on to talk about what that electromagnetic pulse is made up of in terms of its physical energy, right? So typically it's a combination of X-rays, gamma rays, nasty stuff like that, right? you get part of that anyway from a nuclear explosion, but don't forget the EMPs that are the high altitude ones are designed specifically to give you a larger component of EMP and less of a kinetic based explosion, right? In this respect, the kinetic explosion part of an EMP is like a byproduct that if they could not have it, they would be quite happy not to, right? But what people don't tend to realise, by the way, cheers everyone, love, peace and progress to the pack. I'm absolutely gasping and it's been a long break. Love to you all, thank you for joining me. Please do vote in the live poll if you haven't done already, and do hit the like button, it does help it. And share this video as well on your social media. It's really important, it's the only way this channel gets out anywhere. And I've only been monetized for a couple of days, so we're hoping to try and grow the channel. And it's you that are helping to do that. So thank you, each and every one of you who shared this video and other videos of mine on your social media to help your friends and family as well. So let's talk about what actually happens with this EMP then, and how it ends up causing destruction to devices and electronic stuff, right? So the explosion is made up of what's released is nasty X-rays, gamma rays and things like this, right? There's also, it ionizes the atmosphere. So it creates an ionization in the atmosphere, which is like a mass charge of static in the ionosphere is super high up above the cirrus clouds and, you know, the very top above that. So what that does is create an electromagnetic wave propagation. So a wave comes out from the source, and that wave is containing, and it's only a short wave, don't forget, because it only happens over nanoseconds, milliseconds and seconds, right? There's three components to it. There's the E1, the E2 and the E3. So the key effects are, in terms of immediately, right, the instantaneous impact. You're not going to be necessarily feeling it kinetically, but it does cover the entire continent, so you may well see this occurs within milliseconds anyway, so we're not actually sure if you wouldn't hear it or smell it or taste it. That's the nasty thing about it, right? It would just literally be, right? It's not like your hair's going to stand up and end and stuff like this, right? It's not going to be as obvious as that, right? But it's things like because there's three components to it, let's talk about that, right? Because it affects the power grid. Different frequencies affect different things, right? The thing about the resonant frequencies is a little bit like tuning forks that, you know, if you ding and you've got another tuning fork that's the same note frequency, then if you hold them near each other, that other tuning fork will pick up the vibration, the resonance frequency vibration of that other tuning fork. So if you hit one, ding, if you have one that's exactly the same tuned fork as this one, through the air, just from the vibrations of the sound, will if it's tuned the same way, it will resonate that and pick up that energy effectively and efficiently, right? It's the same with frequencies of EMP. So there's a low frequency component, which is like 0.1. Well, okay, let's go in order. So the E1 component of an EMP is the top level, and that's the highest frequency, which is in the high gigahertz, 20-30 gigahertz range, sometimes less. And so let me just refer to, I'm going to see if I can find my notes somewhere, because I like to give you proper numbers, right? So a few nanoseconds, E1 phase, here we go, because I don't want to get any of this wrong for you. So these are the notes for my Surviving World War 3 chapter of my Ultimate Prepping Guidebook, right? So there's three factors of it. So the E1 phase happens in a few nanoseconds. So this is like super high frequency, super fast pulse, right? And this is the gamma rays that are ionizing the air molecules, right? Which creates a sudden surge of electrons. Now, when we say sudden surge, we're talking like 50,000 volts per square meter. So square meter, 50,000 volts of energy contained in that area, right? So this is the part that damages the small components, because it's quite a high frequency pulse. And as I've mentioned in previous things talking about this topic, like the tuning fork, different frequencies will resonate with different electronic components subject to their size. So as an example, the electronic components that are in things like your smartphones and so on, they're quite small circuit board tracks on the printed circuit board inside, and so those small tracks pick up perfectly that frequency and resonate with it, so that energy gets collected in the microelectronic circuitry type devices, like your MP3 players, your smartphones, your laptops, tablets, things like this, right? Now that's what happens in the E1 phase, is it wipes out all of the kind of digital electronics components. This would include things like cell tower electronics as well, and things like this, right? So the E2 phase, which happens in microseconds, which is millionths of a second, yeah? Nanoseconds is billionths of a second. So this is crazy in a flash, lich, right? So this is more like the bit where we get, if I can find it, this is more like the bit where we get the lightning type strike things, right? Which will damage unprotected electronics. If it's hardened against lightning, it might withstand it. So if you've got something that's already hardened against lightning, some electronics are. If they're key infrastructure things, they typically will be. But other than that, they won't be. And don't forget, with the way our society and the way our economy and the way our just-in-time system works, we can't really have a link in the chain that gets broken, because everything it just cascades down the line. That cascade of failure just results in absolute chaos, and society breaks down extremely quickly. Again, watch my grid down scenario. It's an absolute must-watch, and it spells it out. So similar to a lightning strike, in the E2 phase of an EMP, this is where most of the damage is done to the sort of mid-level things, if the initial burst E1 phase hasn't done it already. And so the E3 phase, which is the third part, this happens over minutes, right? So this is where things like your transformers are going to get totally spanked, right? Because we're down to the lower frequencies that last longer. So we're talking down to, from memory, we're talking 0.1 to 1 hertz. So 1 hertz being one wave whoop, 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 whoop per second. 0.1 hertz being whoop, and then 10 seconds later, whoop, 10 seconds later, whoop, right? So this is the size of the wave traveling through the air, right? So the low frequency pulse, which is known as the E3 phase of an EMP, right? The low frequency pulse can last for minutes, right? And the frequency of it resonates with the transmission lines that go across the country, with the long power lines. These are the ones that are tuned to those lower frequencies because they're longer, right? So they collect more energy, feed back to the power stations with the transformers, like I mentioned, that convert the 60,000 volt down to several thousand volt, and then the distribution boxes in your street will condition down to 110 if you're in the United States, or 240 AC here in the UK, right? So the energy builds up in that, takes out the transformers of the main power grid, and you're not repairing them. These things take 18 months to make, so you're not getting that back up and running. So see you later to the main grid, as well as your digital devices being wiped out in those E1, E2 phases of the pulse, right? So in terms of in more detail, the E1, like the mechanisms in which things get damaged, right, is largely from the gamma rays, right? From the original nuclear explosion. This is why it all happens in like nanoseconds, because nuclear explosions are super. And this is like, kilohertz up to gigahertz, so thousands of hertz times per second wave, to gigahertz, which is very destructive for small microelectronic type things, right? So this is the microchips, as I said, and the integrated circuits, ICs and things. Yeah. The mechanism for the E2 phase is again more to do with the grid level transformers and large stuff, right? Like big industrial things, telephone lines as well. Cheers, everyone. Telephone lines is a big one. And the low frequency stuff is the 0.1 to 1 hertz right now. The damage that we're talking about here is permanent, right? So the overloading of integrated circuits is not a good look, right? When you overload those transformers, essentially what's happening is the heat gets so epic in the transformers that the wires are kind of melting together and shorting, and then the whole thing just goes boom, and you've literally got no option but to completely replace it, right? So what we need to be doing is talking about, of course, how we protect from such things as an EMP, because there are ways of doing it, right? Now I've given you a rundown on the different levels, the E1, 2, 3 component to an EMP, the different frequencies that are involved, and things like this, which, all plays into the different levels of damage. And we saw already just the the levels of area that we're talking about that's covered in something like this, which is, this is going to affect the entire country, the entire nation, which makes it impossible for anything to be organized, anything to be coordinated amongst the emergency services. You are on your own with whatever you've got left that wasn't destroyed from the EMP, right? And don't forget, like I said, this is 5th dimensional warfare tactics. So if you've got an EMP come in and wipe out your that is the first strike methodology by the West's enemies, right? Because it makes sense, because you take out their radar, you take out their satellites, you take out their ability to communicate, to organize, right? It's bad news, man. You ain't getting up from that quick at all, right? So when you feel like there's an EMP has just happened, you need to bear in mind that that could just be the first wave of initiation, right? To just take down the radar and the tracking stations and the defenses and things of the country before sending the true payload in undetected, because everything's taken down and everyone's running around with their hair on fire because they don't know what's going on. So let's just catch up with the chat quickly, and then we'll talk about how we protect from that in terms of Faraday cages, what they need to be, what they don't need to be, what you need to watch out for, and what you don't need to watch out for, right? And you can ask me any question you want about anything you want. So thank you everyone for joining us. Tuck by V1, good to see you with us. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate you, man. Dr. Gonzo's with us as well. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Gonzo. I hope you voted in the live poll. Don't forget, we always have a live poll running on these Warzone Wednesdays, so we can capture people's ideas of how they feel about things and their thoughts and opinions on it, so we can share what people think about it. So tonight's live poll, if you're with us live, if you're not, for those who are watching this afterwards, this is what it was. You won't see it in the chat if you're not live. What would be the biggest concern in the event of an EMP attack for you? Would that be a loss of power and the entirety of technology, internet, cell phones, all that gone? Would it be the breakdown of communication, worried about how you communicate with loved ones, family members and vulnerable members of your family that you want to keep in contact with, maybe across town or across the country, that you worry about how that would happen? Of course, food and water shortages could be your biggest fear, or is it the social unrest and security threats that concern you the most, with the idea of an EMP attack taking the entire grid down to the point where it's like literally lights out and sorry about your luck? Like I say, do check out the podcast section of the Sigma Prepper YouTube channel, the podcast tab here. You'll see Grid Down Scenario, absolute must watch. Once you finish watching that, security and protection is, again, same thing. Big monster presentation, slideshow, chopped up into 10-minute bite-sized segment episodes. So Grid Down Scenario is an important one to couple and to complement this Warzone Wednesday for episode 4 that we're doing tonight, specifically talking about EMPs, Electromagnetic Warfare, which comes under 5th dimensional warfare tactics, which is what we're covering this week. Don't forget, if you missed last week, we were talking about drone warfare. Links in the description below. for everything you need. We'll check in with the live chat, see what's going on. Let me know if you're enjoying yourself so far. I don't know what's going on live in the chat. But it looks like everyone's having a great time, which is cool. So let's talk about how we protect from it. Now, here's the main things that people are familiar with, right? So we've got things like this. This is what you call a Faraday bag. Or Faraday cage is essentially something that is metallic and conductive, as in you can conduct electricity with it. And it's completely sealed all the way around. So this flap folds over, which ensures that these two fabric, this is conductive fabric, touch each other all the way around. So whatever you've got inside there, this creates a protective shield. And the idea of this protective fabric, as most of you know, I've designed survival gear, and I've done a lot of prototype engineering using this fabric. I've got an actual official sample pack from the manufacturers here I've had for some time. This is so I know which one I order, because I use different ones for different things. I've done quite a lot of scientific instruments in pelly cases and things. You know, like reconnaissance briefcases that you open up with a screen in, and it's all got panels and things. So I tend to line the inside with RF blocking material, also known as sorry, let me turn it around this way and I can go through them. So these are all slightly different, but they're all classed as RF blocking material. This will work as a Faraday bag. You can see this one's black backed, which has got a nice silk type thing. These are extremely conductive. If you measure the resistance with a multimeter, it's like beep straight away. This is beautiful stuff. I've used this a lot of time for a lot of my clients' prototypes I've built for them. And this lines all the way around the inside of the pelly case, all the way around the underside of the cover. And I use a special method where this is mounted underneath, and I have some foam, sponge foam as on the seam at the top, and then the same on the lid. So when it comes down, it creates basically a shell inside of protective EMP proof material, right? I do a lot of mission critical stuff in terms of the electronic engineering prototyping I do for survival gear, right? Some of it's non-commercial, if you know what I mean. A lot of stuff I'm bringing to market under Single Prepper is, so you'll be able to benefit from all hardcore stuff. So lots of different types of RF blocking materials here, slightly different patterns, but typically the similar sort of thing, right? So that's a sample pack there. This is some stuff I use quite regularly for things I make, so I've got quite a lot of this one. This is beautiful stuff. So this is the essential element, is why I'm showing you this. This is the essential element of a Faraday bag or a Faraday case, is to have something conductive that's sealed all the way around as best as possible. Now, some people will say, you know, perhaps all you need to do is throw stuff into a galvanized steel trash can, 30 gallon, 50 gallon, whatever you want to do, right? And yes, that can work quite well. That is quite a cheap alternative. This is like £30 for a trash can. You can put everything in there. Now, there's a few things to bear in mind if you're going to run with that. The first thing being is you need to watch out for holes. Now, there is a mathematical equation that you can use that any electronic engineer would know when it comes to where people say to me, oh, do you have to seal up all the gaps? Do you have to seal up all the gaps? It's like it needs to be airtight, right? Now, electromagnetic pulse energy isn't like air that can seep in or water that can flood in, right? It's a bit different to that. You've got to remember, these are waves. These are waves, right? And so the frequency of the wave will determine the length of it, and therefore the wavelength of that energy. And so what you need to make sure is that you don't have any holes that are larger than 1/10 of the wavelength. That's the mathematical equation. So let's say the wavelength was 30 meters, a 30 meter wavelength, right? And you can do you can do wavelength calculator. Yeah. Something like this, right? So you can put your frequency in there. So we know that 0.1 hertz is what we looked at as the E3 component of the EMP. So this will tell you what the wavelength of that is. Let's zoom in, or I'm gonna have to put my glasses on. It's long. It's long. It's like thousands of kilometers, right? In terms of meters, this is meters, right? So the wavelength you can see is from crest to crest, right? This is the wavelength that we're measuring here. So the 0.1 hertz is what the frequency of the E3 component, which is the stuff that does the damage to the grids, right? If it was 1 hertz, it's just going to be a tenth of that. So what we're doing is we're working out what a wavelength is, and then we need to take 10% of that is the minimum sized hole that you can have and still be protected as a Faraday cage by the metallic, right? By the conductive surface. No one tells you this stuff. So let's change it to kilohertz then. Let's go 100 kilohertz, which is more like the E2 component. And you'll see here we're at 3,000 meters, so 3 kilometers. This is why I was saying about the E2 component being the one that wipes out the telephone lines, because you can imagine like a couple of thousand kilometers, hundreds of kilometers and things of cable that's spread across the country with telephone wires and so on, is where it really absorbs the energy, right? And so for the E1 component, which happens in the first nanoseconds, we're talking gigahertz, right? We're talking about maybe 20 gigahertz is the size that we're talking about. So now look at the size wavelength we're talking about, 0.01 meters. So this is basically 14 centimeters, right? Are you with me? Let me know live in the chat if you know, if you're following what I'm talking about in terms of how frequency translates to wavelength, right? And if I refer to my ultimate prepping guide notes on this Surviving World War 3 chapter, so the E1 phase is the corresponding wavelengths are one. This is all in my Ultimate Prepping Guide by Sigma Prepper. This is all in there. It's just, this is one of the last chapters, or it's the last chapter. I've got to get finished off. But it's just I'm cheating because I can do these shows and use my notes from... and of course, as an electronic engineer, this is just stuff any electronic engineer should know. And if they don't, walk away. Right, walk away. So 100 kilohertz is one of the components of the E1 phase, sorry, of the EMP, which is the digital electronics destruction phase. This is about 3 meters wavelength. So a tenth of that would be 300 meters, right? Anything smaller, anything larger than that wavelength is getting through. But at 1 gigahertz wavelength, which is more where we are with the E1 component of an EMP frequency burst, that E1 component can contain 1 gigahertz wavelength, which now you're talking like 30 centimeters, right? So what we're saying now is the wavelength of 1 gigahertz, which is 1 million hertz. You can see here, if we dial that into the calculator, right? We've got 1 gigahertz frequency, which is the initial destructive electromagnetic pulse frequency. 1 gigahertz results in a wavelength of 0.29 meters, which is basically, like I said, 30 centimeters. So if the rule is that in order to block that frequency, you need to have holes no bigger than a tenth of its wavelength, it means that we can have holes up to 3 centimeters diameter before that wave can fit through it. Are you with me? So there is a mathematical element to it, right? So what it means is things like, I've built a lot of Faraday cages with stuff like this, and people are, oh, what are you doing? You can't use that. Yeah, but you can. This is copper mesh. It's much more expensive, but it's much more dense. And it's much more rugged, right? I've built systems using this before in the past. when clients have had the budget, right? When they say, I don't care, Drew, just make it the best. That's why everything I do is called the ultimate, because it generally is. That's my style, right? It's premium stuff, all thought through. Because this is mission critical stuff. We can't have any accidents. We can't have any, oops, I didn't think about that. We can't have that in a survival game. This is life and death, right? If I make a mistake with survival gear that I'm producing, people can be logged out of the admin over it, right? So, but the point is that this copper mesh here, there's no holes here, you'll see. That, look, I don't even know if you can see the resolution of it, but it's... Clearly none of these holes are 3 centimeters. That's 3 centimeters to where my finger is on the ruler, right? Do you see? So you'd have to have a hole that's bigger than that to allow that energy to come through into your Faraday cage. So if you bear that in mind, and then we go back to the trash can thing, right? It doesn't hurt to put aluminium or aluminum, depending where you live, tape around the seal where the lid seals onto the main trash can container, right? And then that seals it completely. Like I said, you're not looking for it to be airtight, but remember the rule of thumb: the biggest gap you can have to protect even from the E1, which is the smallest, to protect even from the E1 component of an EMP, you are looking at, as long as you've not got any holes that are bigger than 3 centimeters diameter, you're going to be good in the hood, right? So clearly you're not going to have that with the way the lid fits on if it's nice and tight, but you're still better off putting whatever you're going to put in it to keep it safe. Now, personally, I don't really like the trash can idea. There are other ways of doing it. I've got another design which uses an ammo can, which is metal. But funnily enough, I don't even use the metal of these when I've done these before. Yeah. I just put an internal shell of lining that's self-contained inside. Right? So when you open the lid, you've just got a panel in there with the sockets and things like that. But under the panel, it's basically its own Faraday cage inside the Faraday cage. Right? And ideally, you need the lid to be conducting. Yeah, but you see it's got rubber. These are rubber seals. So you need to make modifications to make sure that the lid conducts to the thing. Right? So it's not the best solution, to be honest. But what I like about these is you can get 18650 cell holders that fit in here perfectly to make a battery bank that's EMP proof. Survival Lily did one years ago, and it was a little bit ropey. There's a lot of things that I would say, no, don't do that. No, definitely don't do that. Oh, God, don't do that. It was one of them watching it, right? But bless her for giving it a go, right? So the other thing that I find a little bit more convenient, I showed you this example. Now, because of the way that the Ultimate Hotspot by Sigma Prepper, which is the offline internet system, emergency internet, which gives you an access point that with your smartphone, you can access things like Wikipedia, all 6.2 million pages, loads of survival information, 60,000 books on the Gutenberg project. So this comes in a leather. This is what comes when you buy an Ultimate Hotspot. John Haynes, by the way, I don't suppose John Haynes is live in the chat, is he? Because his hotspot was sent out today. That'll arrive tomorrow before 1 p.m. So someone needs to be able to sign it. To sign for it. So this is the Sigma Prepper hotspot. This is, like I say, it's a Raspberry Pi single board computer that acts as a web server that you can connect to with anything that's got Wi-Fi working on it. But like I say, even that comes in its own Faraday protected bag to keep your hotspot safe when it's in storage, ready to be used in a crisis. So by the time you've had the EMP, you can pull your hotspot out and it's still good to go. The velvet bag that it goes in as well isn't, and don't forget this lanyard here is actually disguised as a USB power cable for the Raspberry Pi. So that's protected from itself. Things like wires you don't have to worry about, right? Because it's an open circuit. There's no electronics in it. There's no current. Even there's no current to build up in it. It's just a loose piece of copper end to end. There's nothing connected to anything either end. So you wouldn't need to put like a cable in a Faraday bag, just so you know, right? USB cables, stuff like that. You don't need to put them in Faraday bags. There's no way for them to get damaged from any form of EMP if they're not connected into anything. However, as you can imagine, if you had a cable going from your USB battery bank to your device, wherever it is by USB, you can imagine where that resonance 50,000 volt per square meter energy can be resonating into that USB cable, which is, you know, and it's going to fry this and fry that, right? So bear that in mind. But there's other different versions of Faraday bag. I've got one here that's specific for one of my survival. One of the things you should have is a backup. This here again is another version. I bought lots of these when I was prototyping the Ultimate Hotspot by Sigma Prepper, the Ultimate Survival Hotspot, offline internet, backup internet. So I bought lots and lots of different ones to prototype before I ended up just going to manufacture and getting how I wanted it. But I've got lots of different versions beforehand. This was one that I actually use now for a backup mobile phone. Look at the size of this little thing. It's so cute. It's so cute. And this thing, believe it or not, can take up to 4 SIM cards. The battery lasts forever, right? It's got a colour screen on it, but there's no touch screen. It's like traditional buttons and things, right? And not only that, it's proper bust the back off it, right? Like every phone should be. It's to bust the back off it, yeah. Put a new battery in, switch the battery out. Look, 1, 2, 3, 4 SIM card holders, right, in the back of it, and this thing's tiny. I've just put some Captain tape here. It's like electronic engineering tape that's high temperature. Captain tape here just to seal off the connectors, so while this is in storage, it's not draining the battery down on standby. When it's an emergency, I can peel that off and she's good to go, right? So that battery is bang on. Clip the back on, she's good to go. It's even got a little camera look. Look how cute it is. Let me show you it next to an iPhone. Let me show you it next to an iPhone. What is this, 14 or something? Hold on. Look at the size difference, look. Look how cute it is, yeah? So that that sits in its own. Let us know if you're liking the little cute backup phone, right? So that goes in its own Faraday bag there, which is just another different version of. But these are very convenient. Again, they just Velcro over, and because this material is both sides here, when it folds over, it conducts and does make it a concealed all the way around. Definitely no 3 centimeter sized holes. What's that, like 1.25 inches or so diameter hole. Cheers everyone. You've then got things like this, which is a slightly bigger version of a Faraday bag. This is padded as well, it's quite nice, digital camo look. But this is a slightly bigger thing, and again same, yeah, conductive fabric. All the way around, and of course that all seals and conducts all the way around, makes a connection, right? And I like this because it's padded as well. There's also a pocket on the back here, which I think is not protected with the Faraday, so you'd have to bear that in mind with things like that. So make sure you understand which bits are protected, which bits are not. Don't just assume all of it is. And in here I've got slightly bigger things like, you know, the old, oh, it's green, so it's having a prob. But I've got like the classic wind-up radio, yeah, kind of thing. You know the ones, the emergency radios. It's got lithium pack in it. It's got AA batteries in it and stuff as well. So got things like that in there. There's an 18650 charger, yeah, which runs off 12 volt there, or USB. So I've got that in there, and a few other bits and pieces, you know, some things like button cells for your red dot scopes and things like that, right? Spare batteries for that. So there's various bits and pieces in there for that. But these are much more convenient than a trash can, and you're having to sort of seal up if you're not confident that it's a complete seal all the way around. So again, things like my my ultimate heat harvesting kit by Sigma Prepper. Bear in mind I did a video showing this just before this video. I put it out. Let me just get it back to your videos. Oh. Sorry. So, over on the Sigma Prepper channel, earlier today on videos, you'll see this grid down scenario with the mobility scooter, right? This one, right? So the thumbnail looks like this, right? In there, I showed you in detail, well, somewhat detail, my e-harvesting kit. But this again, whether you would need, you see it's got every single cable you could want. All types of USB cable, crocodile clips, USB to 12 volt converter cables to DC. You got lithium ion cell charger here that runs off USB-C, loads of other little sneaky bits in here, as well as a current meter, watt meter. And then in the main section, these were supposed to be available this year, but I'm going to roll these out next year instead because I did a couple, but I need to restock on some bits. So this is what's in the other section, right? So you got these here, which are DC jack converters of every kind you could imagine. And you basically just plug the old DC jack, 12 volt DC barrel jack into the bottom of those connector converters. So you've got things like a car cigarette lighter option in your car so you can power things, or I've got in here as well, you can see like MC4 connectors for the solar panels, right? Male and female. This is a watt meter, current meter with XT60 connectors. Here you'll see I've got crocodile clips. If you come across a car, jack the hood open, crocodile clips on the battery, you can harvest energy from that. I've even got these little heat shrink things with solder in them. You can just use a lighter to twist up and make wires. You've got terminal block connectors here as well, in addition to a small screwdriver here, which has got flatheads and Phillips to be able to do things like the terminal blocks. You've got fuse wire, you know, the spade fuses for cars. There's a bunch of different kinds of those in there as well. Plus converters from XT60 cables to XT90. Plus in here, as well as the converter, so you can run a car cigarette lighter socket. Yeah. Again with the XT60 connectors, which are super good quality, you know me. And I've got 120 watt USB-C power delivery. So 100 watt power delivery USB-C straight. You can charge laptops for that, modern day laptops. Plus I think the USB, even the USB-A port does 30 watt. So 120 watt as well that goes in there and is also stored in there. I mean, literally it's got everything you could possibly want in there. There's even a little mini continuity tester that goes beep, and in this back pocket of it, which funnily enough was the only thing I was actually going to show you, but never mind. In this here is actually, you get a Faraday bag with it anyway, which is good for a smartphone. Right, so that's in the back pocket of it. So that's the idea with that. That's the Sigma Prepper e-harvesting kit. The Sigma Prepper Ultimate e-harvesting kit. There's a smaller version of it as well that you'll be able to get hold of. But as you can imagine, these cost a lot to put together because there's every cable you can imagine in there, and they're all quality stuff, and they've all got backups to the backups. Everything you could possibly want in a grid down scenario. Those cables, of course, are going to be okay in a grid down scenario, in an EMP that we've been talking about. But of course, things like those, that watt meter, the small charger there that can charge 18650 lithium ion cells, because they contain digital electronics, and because this isn't itself a Faraday case, although the included Faraday bag is, but it's obviously in the side pocket here. But the actual case itself isn't fully Faraday cage. But because it's mainly cables, there's not much in there that can be, right? But the problem is if you lose one part of it, then you've lost it all, really. Because if you lose your main power supply, like I've got my off-grid solar power system here that runs my lab and studio. I've got mains coming in here as well, but as a backup, I've got like 1500 watt on the roof and a 600 amp hour, 5 deep cycle battery in parallel, 600 amp hour battery backup system, right? Runs on 12 volt. So I can do a lot of stuff with 12 volt, like all my router and things like that runs off it as well. Emergency lighting, CCTV system, which is quite comprehensive. That all runs from that as well, full time off the battery banks. Even if the grid goes down in here, I kind of wouldn't notice, right? But in the winter time, it's quite tricky to recharge your solar panels, and there is a question of, you know, would my entire off-grid solar panel system be wiped out by an EMP? I think probably yeah, because I think that static energy charge is going to be picked up, if nothing else, in the cables that are going down the roof from my solar panels come down into my battery bank system with my Victron charge controller and stuff like that, right? So there's a lot of electronics that you're relying on. The only thing I would say is that this is a dedicated structure that is made itself of stainless steel, galvanized steel cladding all the way around it. So it's kind of Faraday caged itself already, but not perfectly. There's certainly gaps bigger than 3 centimeters, which is the, you know, if you want to cover yourself from the E1, 2 and E3 stuff, then so I mean it does like I say, if you want to use a trash can type idea, it's quite handy just to dump everything in there. But of course, a lot of people have the similar problem to me, is that a lot of my sort of sensitive electronics and stuff that is the most valuable, I can't afford to have backups of, apart from that little dinky phone that was something like £20, I think, on AliExpress, right? As a backup phone, because again, you're using your phone all the time. It's sitting on my desk here, it was sitting on my desk. It's not like you put your own smartphone in a Faraday bag all the time, is it? Do you know what I mean? So unless you've got a spare one that you can just literally shut in your galvanized steel sort of DIY Faraday cage, then, do you know what I mean? It's just going to be a stroke of luck or bad luck whether it happens to be in there or out of it. And don't forget, who's to say there's going to be only one EMP attack? If there's multiple, there could be one tomorrow. So you think, oh, it's all good in the hood. You start getting all your ham radios out and testing them and make sure it's all good. And you start setting your emergency stuff up, like your motion sensors that you've got. I did a video about that for my solo wild camping I use like a wireless doorbell type PIR setup, which works brilliantly. And that just uses AA's and AAA batteries, which I can recharge from my off-grid power bank, right? So you can get all these things out of your trash can, out of your Faraday cage, and you can get them all up rocking. And then the next day there's another EMP comes and you're wiped out properly now. Are you with me? So it becomes tricky. Now let me tell you the worst part of this, which I haven't even told you yet. Right? The worst part of this is the fact that nuclear power stations don't have any protection from it. And so the problem is that it's a little bit like the reason Fukushima was because the original earthquake, 9 point whatever it was, 8.9 or whatever it was, forget the exact magnitude of it, but it was epic. The earthquake took out the backup generators, the power generators for the nuclear power station. So the initial earthquake destroyed the backup generators, and the tsunami that subsequently came as a result of the earthquake took out the main power. And that was why the corium ended up in the ground, was the fact that it had basically gone supernova, right? Which is not a good look. And of course, no one's been back since. You're going to have that happening everywhere, because the EMP is going to take out the backup generators, and when the grid fails, the nuclear power stations have no way to go into shutdown, which takes weeks and weeks to shut down properly until all the rods are cooled. But to cool the rods, you have to continually run water, which is why they're on the coast typically, because they're just running water through to cool the rods. But if you don't have the electricity, this is what happened in Fukushima. How are you running your pumps to pump the water through the system and through the cooling systems to even enter shutdown mode, right? Your hydraulics aren't going to work to raise the rods out and things like this. It's just bad news, man. So basically, all your nuclear power stations are going to be going meltdown as a result of the EMP. So you think to yourself, well, there's never going to be any grid power again for some time. We'll be thrown back to the Bronze Age, like in a nanosecond, quite literally. We just won't know it for weeks until just things don't turn back on, panic ensues. And so some people would say, is it worth trying to survive or protect from an EMP type warfare when, you know, the life after that is going to be so difficult with no technology at all. You ain't getting it back up and running for any time soon. Everything fails. Everybody who's in an aircraft is unalived, right? That's up to 500,000 people at any given time, don't forget, if you look into it, which I did for my book. But I looked into how many people are in the air at any given time. It's about 500,000. 500,000 people are in the air at any given time. So imagine that, EMP, all them planes, see you later. Don't think the aluminium fuselage of the jumbo liners is acting as a Faraday cage. It's not. Yes, they do have hardened systems, and yes, they do have the critical systems in the main flight control systems and things like that are contained, and the flight computers are contained in what they like to consider to be Faraday-like things, right? But yeah, Frazzled Rock, says Tracy. Do you remember Fraggle Rock? Still leaching into Pacific. Don't even remind us. We like to pretend it's not happening. We like to be ignorant to it. It's much easier. Is my darling Noelle Marie in the house? She is as well. Hello. Lovely to see your name pop up, Noelle Marie. You've put my mind at ease. We need to catch up one-to-one as soon as you're able to. Just flicking through the chat. Look at surplus military cases. If you can't afford new, borrow that best plastic totes you can afford. I do like Pelly cases. Anonymity, have you seen a USB butt converters? 5 volt to 12 volt or Variabox to 18 volt? Yeah, I mentioned that significantly actually with my like my USB-C PD powered power delivery. Yeah. Let me jump into my Ultimate Prepping Guide book and I'll fire that up for you because there's a bit in there that... Where is that going to be? It's like page 285, I think. Let me see. 285. Ooh. So page 285 in my book here, right? So this goes on about battery banks and stuff like that, right? So this shows you how many watt hours the average battery takes to charge 80%, right? So you can work out, depending on what battery bank you've got in terms of watt hours, by timesing the volts by the amp hours will give you watt hours, right? But this is based on these 70 watt hour battery banks, which are these sort of size, 70 watt hour, right? And it'll tell you how many times you can charge that. I've also got here every USB cable connector that there is, along with a USB-C and USB-C PD. So I've listed that here as well in my book. Look, so you got the USB-C PD, you got 5, 9, 12, 15, 20 and 48 volt options if you've got USB power delivery, which is the USB-C port, but it has to specifically say power delivery. And you'll be able to trigger your, this is one of my favorite ones. This can do something like 80 watts, this thing. But this has got USB PD, USB-C. And these are the ones that I use for my the Sigma Prepper Ultimate Water Filtration kit, which I developed and tested the final prototype this year. You'll see it on my channel. Look, this one here, electronic. Let's just punch it open quickly. So this is the video. I did my wild solo camping this year, and every year I do prototype of a new product that I'm working on. This is my automated. This is my automated kit, which is basically using a 12 volt water pump. Right, it's a brushless motor. It's a nice one. 12 volt water pump, but the actual connector, I chopped it off because it was just a DC barrel jet connector for 20 volt, right? But essentially what it is I chopped it off, and on the end there is a circuit board called a trigger board, and it basically tells your battery bank, if it supports USB-C PD, it will tell your battery bank, can I have 15 volts please? I say 15 because although this pump runs on 12, I'm kind of overclocking it because that trigger board, I've programmed it to give 15 volts. Don't forget, normal USB is only 5 volts. But this battery takes that 5 volt and it boosts it up to 20 volt. This can go up to. Some can go to 48 volts. So that's the idea of that, right? And so this is my automated water filtration system, which by using an electronic pump like that, we go down a lake, look. We get it set up. I can just throw the end in there, which is essentially a brewing filter, and I put a marble in it so it sinks, and I pop it over the end into the lake. You can check this video out after as you want, and it worked perfectly. Straight through the Sawyer mini filters, sucking it out of the lake. So the idea of this is I don't have to be messing around trying to be collecting water and having not been able to watch my 6, right? Whereas this, I can just lob that in there, hit go, and stand back, and it just fills up the water completely with drinkable water on the way back to camp if I want. And that takes advantage as well of the USB-C PD power delivery, which can give you greater voltages. There's also a USB-C. There's also a USB QC, right, which can also do, you can see here, yeah, the QC 2.0, that's just using a normal USB port. You can tell if it's green, if it's a green, you can see that's green color port, so that's supporting the quick charge, the QC. And you can see here I've featured this Qualcomm quick charge. This is another version which doesn't rely on USB-C PD, but if your battery bank at least supports Qualcomm QC charge technology on USB, it will be able to boost it from 5 volt to 12 volt, and therefore you can take advantage of using one of your barrel jacks there, which can allow you to, instead of having your wall wire, this again is from my Ultimate Prepping Guide book. I might move this into a separate book though, I've decided, but anyway. But instead of using your wall wire things for the 12 volt connector, you can just use one of them instead, like your ham radio chargers is a classic one, right? Anyway, I'm getting off topic, but you get the idea. And again, the problem is you've got to be trying to protect all this at the same time. Your cables are fine, but things like USB battery banks, this ain't going to be any good if it's sitting on my desk and then the EMP happens right now. Yeah. But I think we'll get a little bit of a heads up. I think we'll see global conflict escalate a lot more before that happens. That's literally go time. When an EMP happens, that means it's on. And when I mean on, I mean on. I'm talking everything's on the table. Cheers, everyone. So, I've got loads coming up, loads we've been talking about. We've been rocking for more than 2 hours now. We didn't make it to our 10 super chats so that we could do an after party live show, so we'll be doing it just with the VIPs in the VIP after party. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining us. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's show. If you think it's been valuable and there's a lot of information in here that you think could be beneficial to a loved one or a friend or a work colleague, please do share my videos on your social media or directly with your friends. This has been the fifth dimensional warfare tactics. The electromagnetic warfare is what we dealt with today. And this is what we've talked about. I hope you've learned something today. We've got so much more to go through. Don't forget, each week on these on these Warzone Wednesdays, while wearing onesies, while it's thingy, don't forget, we are going to be going through week by week each of the types of warfare tactics, taking one by one from these lists. This is the conventional warfare tactics list. And again, we've had the fourth dimensional warfare tactics list that we talked about. And of course, today we've been again talking about fifth dimensional warfare tactics with the electromagnetic warfare, last week being the drone warfare. And if you did miss that show, please do catch up with that. It's linked in the description below. So this has been the prepping for SHTF, how to survive World War III, the SHTF scenarios by Sigma Prepper. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Thank you to everyone who's hit the like button. We will now take the final results of our poll we've had going tonight. So let's take a screenshot of it. We've had 78 votes, so thank you to everyone who's helped have your say in the poll as to what your concerns are most for an EMP attack. So poll results, boom boom. This is the Discord server. This is where we'll be going afterwards. We'll be going up here in the VIP voice chat. We'll be doing public voice chats on another night. This is what the results ended like then. What would be your biggest concern in the event of an EMP attack? And it looks like pretty much social unrest and security threats is the winner or loser, depending which way you look at it. So that seems to be the thing that people are concerned most about, the social unrest and security threats. Absolutely, when the power's down, it's just who knows what happens at that point. And again, that would probably be a good time to check out the Sigma Prepper channel. And there's a great one there, which is security and protection, to give you a bit of peace of mind of some of the ideas that I bring to you, are ways to protect yourself in an environment where you've got a crisis, you've got society collapsing, the fabric of society tearing at the seams. Security and protection there. Go onto the podcast tab, and I've organized this I've split it into 6 or 7 episodes, nice snippets that you can go through one by one, which is a great way to do it bit by bit if you haven't got quite as much time. So I really appreciate everybody who helped in the live poll tonight. I'm sorry if I haven't kept up with everybody's live chat. Of course, these Warzone Wednesdays, I have an awful lot of work I put into these, producing and writing the show beforehand. So when I'm delivering it, it's sometimes difficult to be getting really involved in thingy bobs going on live in the chat. Thank you to Sandy. I appreciate your kind words. Thank you, Daily Survival, for keeping it cool in the chat. Moderate all moderators. Thank you to Kaz and everyone being with us. Noel Marie, lovely to see you. And Tuck by One. John Smith, thank you everyone for joining us. Dr. Gonzo, I hope it's been useful for everyone. And, you know, please give us your feedback. If you're watching this afterwards, please do give us your comments, any other advice. But in the meantime, hit the like button. I've been Drew the Sigma Prepper. You've been such a wonderful bunch tonight. This has been the Warzone Wednesday. Love, peace and progress.
Reject the herd, prepare the pack. Click the like button, it's as easy as that. Check the description for the links you need. Follow my socials, subscribe to my feed. From a single lone woman to a family of 5. Learn from Sigma Prepper and see how you can thrive. We understand the risks that tomorrow could bring. We adapt and survive, it's a wolf pack thing. Reject the herd, prepare the pack. Click the like button, it's as easy as that. Check the description for the links you need. Follow my socials, subscribe to my feed.